Hey everyone, this is Elenbass from Nightlight Astrology, and today I am joined by my friends and colleagues to break down all of the major astrological transits for the month of December. It's our final month of the year, but we still have a lot of really exciting astrology to come before the new year. 2026 is also loaded with good astrology, so we will be back in the new year to break down January for you and every other month as we always do. But yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. Before we do that, as always, remember to like and subscribe. It helps us grow so much if you watch regularly, or even if you're new and you press the subscribe button, that helps us grow. You can find transcripts of many of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And as most of you know, right now we are in the midst of Kickstarter season. This episode is coming out on a Sunday, which is not typical. Typically, we run our monthly overview or horoscopes on a weekday. This one's coming out on a Sunday because we have so much planned content in the next week ahead. So, but usually on Sundays, I won't do any promoting, but because we're in Kickstarter mode, I do need to take just a second to point you over to the Kickstarter campaign. You can find it in the description of this video, in the comments section of this video. Head over there. When you donate to support us, there are a ton of really cool exclusive gifts that we offer, most notably huge discounts on all of our classes and programs, some exclusive content that we don't offer anywhere else, the Astrology of 2026 year ahead horoscope readings. That's 6 hours worth of horoscope content for 2026 you can pick up. At the end of today's content, I will be breaking down all of the different rewards that we offer when you support the channel. So stick around, because after we finish up with content today, you can learn everything that there is to pick up at the Kickstarter when you support us. We really deeply appreciate that support. It's how everything at Nightlight works. When you support the channel, you support need-based tuition and so many other things that we do. So thank you in advance. All right, on that note, I'm really glad to bring our crew back. Shirzad, Tim, Bianca, Courtney. Hey, welcome back.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're getting a few recordings done before the holidays, and we're making sure that everyone has a nice overview of the holiday season, whatever you are celebrating. Or just the end of the calendar year coming up on winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, it's still solstice season, so it's a big turning point for everyone. And we're going to break down the astrology of this turning point by really looking at the major events left for us in the month of December. Now, what we're going to do, as we always do, is we're breaking these into like thematic chunks. So each of the panelists will take a turn breaking down one part of the month's astrology. And we always kind of take turns and shift and shake up who's going in what order or what have you. But this is going to be really fun because, first of all, I think some of the biggest astrology of the end of the year here has been our grand water trines. We've spent a lot of time talking about grand water trines. We have one last series of grand water trines that will be activated by Mercury, who's now going to be moving direct by the time you're listening to this. That direct motion will take Mercury back through the grand water trine one more time. So early December is like one last deluge of astrological water energy. Then we get into a series of really interesting dynamics between Sagittarius and Pisces, both Jupiter-ruled signs that are engaging in some ongoing squares as the month goes on. Mars will square Saturn. That's one of the headlines of the month for sure. We get another Mercury opposite Uranus before Mercury leaves Scorpio. So that's like 3 altogether, 1 direct, 1 retrograde, and 1 direct again. We have a very powerful full moon and new moon configuration this month. Both of them are pretty epic. The new moon in Sagittarius comes right around the time of the solstice. We're going to be looking at that. So a lot of things to take a look at. Toward the end of the month, Venus is just very, very active. That's going to be really interesting for us to look at as well. So all of these things, as each person breaks them down, I'll add some of my commentary as we roll through. But yeah, this is going to be followed, by the way, again, in early January. We'll give you that overview for January. And the New Year's also just right off to the races, because by the end of January, we're going to see Neptune back into Aries. And then closely after that, in our first couple months of the year, we're going to be breaking down the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, which is easily, I think, probably one of the biggest transits of the year, as far as at least my opinion goes. So yeah, so lots to come, not just now, but going forward with our team here. All right, well, on that note, I'm going to hand things over to Courtney, who's going to take us through the first couple of major events on the year. And what I'm going to do is, before each person goes, I'm just going to kind of briefly outline the thematic section that they'll be taking us through and just show it to you on the real-time clock. I'll keep that real-time clock up as each speaker is breaking things down. So this is starting off here on December 4th, and let me advance the chart here to December 4th. Courtney's first take for us is going to be this full moon in Gemini. Now, that full moon in Gemini is taking place in Mercury's sign, and over the next couple of days, just after the 6th, the 7th of December, following that full moon, the host of the full moon, Mercury, now direct after its retrograde in Scorpio, will be activating the grand water trine one last time. So Courtney's going to take us through that sequence of events first. And what I'm going to do is just keep the chart up on the screen and kind of give you some cues as she's going through everything. And you know what I better do right now? I better make sure that Courtney is at the top of our list, not the bottom. So that I'll block out my face. Okay, go ahead, Courtney. Tell us what's up.
Yeah, so anytime we're thinking about a full moon, we might think about that full moon moment as like the dot in the yin yang. So we have like a prevailing energy that's like the fishtail of the yin yang, and that's going to be held down by the sun's placement because the sun um will spend like 30 days in any given sign, and the sun travels in groups. We've got Mercury and Venus usually traveling alongside the sign either before or after. And in this case, too, we've had Mars paving the way for a good chunk of time here in Sagittarius. And so, as the full moon comes through, it's going to pop out some oppositional energies, just like that dot in the yin yang. So, the full moon, once it moves into that oppositional placement, it's going to reflect something back to the sun that is somehow contradictory or tension creating in terms of the work that the sun is doing here in Sagittarius. This is a really interesting way to think about this particular full moon, too, I think, because both Sagittarius and Gemini are double bodied signs. And the nature of the double bodied sign is to somehow link two oppositional qualities of energy together in a singular unit. So if we think about the ways in which Gemini and Sagittarius are similar to each other, they're both very like dynamic social places, and they're known for being very intellectual. They like to gather knowledge and information, but the way they go about this gathering of knowledge is very different. So Sagittarius might accumulate information towards the building of a moralistic framework or a philosophical structure, whereas Gemini is a lot more whimsical and ambivalent in the way that it collects knowledge. And we can see this elementally too. Sagittarius as a fire sign likes to, it needs something to burn, something to kind of aggregate around in order for it to express itself naturally. Whereas Gemini as an air sign is just going to mill about in whatever space that it's given because that's just what air does. If we think about the relationship that air has to fire, sometimes air can feed fire, but when we're talking about an oppositional dynamic like we are with Sagittarius and Gemini, that air might snuff out the flame of the Sagittarian. So with this full moon in Gemini, there might be a new source of information or a new way of doing something that presents itself that somehow casts doubt on the work that's been taking place here in this Sagittarian house in our charts. But there's a gift here too, I think. And if we look closer at that word ambivalent beyond its superficial connotations to like apathy, I don't think that sort of apathetic understanding of the word ambivalent is fair for the Gemini archetype. Ambivalent, etymologically speaking, can be broken down into ambi and valent. Ambi meaning like multiple or both, valent meaning ways. So the ambivalence of Gemini has more to do with the fact that the Gemini archetype can recognize that there are infinite ways of approaching any given situation. They're all equally exciting. And so even though this Gemini energy might be casting doubt or snuffing out the flame of the Sagittarian fire, it's also presenting new ideas and new sources of direction in which to take the situation. And if we were to sum up this whole full moon into like a little tagline, a little takeaway to carry with us through this moment, I imagine the archer of the Sagittarius, and thinking about how sometimes we have to shoot our arrows without knowing where it's going to land. Just in that process of moving outside of ourselves, we can begin to feel into what directions are available to us and begin to find our way through the dark that way. And like Adam was saying, in the next few days, we're going to have Mercury, the host of this full moon, moving into trines with first Jupiter and then Saturn. These trines take place over the course of just a couple of days, and so they're really going to be invoking that same grand water trine energy that we were experiencing at the very end of November. But what I'm struck by looking at this grand water trine this time is that Mercury is moving through this trine by itself for the first time. And Mercury just feels so small in relationship to Jupiter and Saturn, who are like these big system behemoths. They work in these really broad strokes, right? Jupiter is like the infrastructural complexes that create abundance and fertility, and Saturn's like the gravity that holds us down and roots us to the earth. Whereas Mercury is working on the level of the atomic, like, the fine editing of a sentence, or like the very minuscule way in which things are structured. And Jupiter and Saturn are the two planets, the two players that have been consistent throughout each series of these grand water trines. So it really seems like these grand water trines as a greater arc has been about the negotiation and healing processes taking place between Jupiter and Saturn. But that's not to say that Mercury is powerless here. I think about all of these creation stories we have the world over, in which in that moment when the world is being created, there's a negotiation process taking place between the heavenly realm and the earthly realm. But usually these two places aren't in direct connection with each other. They need a messenger spirit, some sort of winged creature like a hummingbird or a crow, usually does that negotiation for them. And while it seems like the big picture changes are taking place entirely under the jurisdiction of these like big planets, the Jupiter and Saturn here, or the heavenly realm and the earthly realm, there's a moment in translation in which that winged spirit, who we might think of as Mercury here, can sort of tweak the outcome and bring in like a third player. In that final moment of negotiation, Mercury might change something so subtle that still meets the needs of the Jupiter and the Saturn dynamic, that totally changes the picture and makes it somehow beneficial to a third party. As I was curating my notes for these transits, in one of the study groups that I'm a part of, somebody brought up the Serenity Prayer, which goes like it goes something like this: Gods, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And it's this beautiful tripartite prayer, and we can break it down into these three parts. With the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, it feels very much like Saturn and Pisces here. We might think of the courage to change the things that we can as that Jupiter in Cancer, and the wisdom to tell the difference between the two is definitely Mercury and Scorpio. What sort of small negotiations, like subtle, sneaky ways, can we slip in like a really minor adjustment to this greater arc of change that's taking place between Saturn and Jupiter, that somehow changes the outcome in such a way that considers something that hasn't been considered before? So that's like the big picture approach that I'm taking in terms of looking at the start of this month here.
I love that. Yeah, it was a really nice way of weaving it all together. One thing that comes to my mind is that the the appearance of a full moon in Gemini, like you were mentioning, there's a kind of whimsical quality to Gemini. With the host in Scorpio, we have an aversion between the moon and Mercury. And my experience between Gemini and Scorpio is that what Scorpio may be taking too seriously, Gemini can lighten up and be more playful about. But what Gemini may not be looking carefully or closely enough, that may have much more consequence or gravitas or depth than Gemini is considering, Scorpio will bring to the attention of Gemini. And so they're a very odd couple. Like in dating, they are often attracted to one another because they each offer something that the other sometimes can't see. So this blind spot between the two, I could see as very constructive in terms of lightening and making more playful a heavier emotional charge or moment, but also perhaps something that we aren't looking carefully enough, we get drawn a little deeper into and going beneath the surface. I'll add, those will be just my few added thoughts, but I really loved where you took that. And I think the way you covered Sag and Gemini as an axis as well was really, really nice. I appreciated that. Well, let's move into our next section of the month. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for your service. That was great. Shirazad is going to take us into our next section, and I'm going to just preview that first. This is a very loaded time of the month where a lot of very Marsy and Uranian things are happening, which could make it a bit edgier. Let's take a look. So we have on December 8th, and I'm just going to, you know what, before I do this, I'm going to drag myself up here for a second so that my face isn't covered. Okay. So on December 8th, we're going to see, I'm going to push this forward just a few more days. And let's take a look here. Mars in late Sagittarius will be squaring Saturn. And then if we move forward just 2 days later, as that square is just barely separating, then we're going to see Mercury in Mars's sign getting into an opposition with Uranus. We have Mercury in a Mars ruled sign, right? So there's some real edge to this time of the month. On the 11th, Mercury will then trine Neptune. I like this, kind of adding just a little bit of softness into the mix. Maybe a little bit of healing right in the midst of what could be very feeling like you're getting like a body check from the, or an elbow to your hockey helmet. Okay. And then we move to the last in the sequence that Shirazad is going to take us through, which is where Mars squares Neptune on the 14th. Now, as a native Mars-Neptune person myself, I've got an opposition between them. You would think right away, you would think, oh, Neptune will just soften Mars, but it can actually make you real psychotic. So remember when Pluto went over my Mars-Neptune opposition, and that was real crazy. So, but anyway, I'm playing around. I'm going to let Shirazad take it from here. As she goes through this sequence, I will highlight them, and I'm going to now put her up to the top. And yeah, what do you think about this space?
Thank you, Adam. So Mars squares Saturn. We have the fiery Mars meeting Saturn's slow, steady discipline here. This energy here, Mars, as we know, it can be the energy of action, conflict, courage, danger. And then here it is meeting the discipline, heaviness, and delays and limits of Saturn. So with this transit, there can be a little bit of a frustrating energy because it feels like you want to go with that fiery Mars. You want to just like go in your regular speed, and maybe you want to have a faster speed, but then Saturn is like, maybe not today. So just make sure you take care of yourself during this time. And this transit really reminds me of Doctor Strange. Like in the beginning of the movie, you see Doctor Strange, he loves speeding, he has that Mars and Sag energy. He's, you know, a little bit about himself, and like he doesn't care about breaking people's hearts. And then he has this, you know, moment of reality check. Saturn arrives and he has this accident. He has to slow down. He has to face those delays. And he has this kind of loss of control that is very Saturn in Pisces. And then he's like, oh, I have to surrender to a process that I cannot rush. Healing does not, you know, it cannot be rushed. And then with time, you know, like with kind of like discipline, humility, and daily repetition, he starts to get that healing. That sometimes the progress is invisible during the movie, but then at the end you see that he does make that progress with time, and you see that growth in him. So I'm thinking that there can be positive things with this transit, as odd as it might sound. I have this cards of virtues that I have been given as a gift for my birthday, and I really love those cards. Sometimes I pick a virtue and I reflect on it and how I can implement that virtue in my life. And a virtue that recently came up in those cards for me was fortitude. And I was thinking about it. The meaning that it was on the card was like long suffering in situations that we cannot control, and we do not allow the trials of life to steal our joy, and being committed to the long run, and tolerating what we cannot control. So depending on where this falls in your chart, I was thinking maybe it's time to just like think of that fortitude word. I really love this word, fortitude. I didn't know about this word in English before seeing it on the virtue card. Maybe it's like based on where it falls in your chart, maybe you decide to learn something new and practice every day, slowly getting better, even if the progress feels slow at first. Maybe you decide, you know, to just follow something even though you don't see the progress. And also it's very important to mention that Mars and Sag doesn't like being pinned down, but it is with time and commitment that fulfillment comes out of it. Because with Saturn in Pisces, there's also that deeper spiritual kind of like soul level fulfillment. So a few questions that you might ask yourself during this transit could be, where am I being asked to slow down and develop more fortitude, maybe? Or where am I being asked to let go of to something that I am holding on to tightly? And where am I being asked to maybe refine some qualities in myself that do not serve me anymore, and kind of like put a limit to the speed that I want to have? Maybe sometimes that kind of things that stop in our way, it is ourselves. Sometimes we are, you know, what is stopping in our way? So those are some questions to ask yourself maybe during this transit. And the next one, Mercury opposite Uranus. So here we have Mercury in the feminine watery sign of Mars. There is this sharpness quality to Mercury in Mars' sign. There is that profound analysis, and at times a little bit of a, you know, reserved or cautious approach. So maybe during this time, this sharpness of Mercury becomes like there meets that sudden, unpredictable energy of Uranus. Some keywords that comes to my mind with this transit could be that mind-body sensitivity, high voltage mental energy, a charged nervous system. I noticed that this with Mercury Uranus oppositions, it feels like your nervous energy, your nervous system is very charged, and there is that somatic response to emotional intensity. We could expect maybe sudden releases or eruptions in communication, relationships, or emotional bonds. And with the Scorpio being here, you know, maybe things that are not very visible to us, but come to the surface, kind of like opening Pandora's box. You know, once you open the box, there's no way back. You see what's in there. So it kind of feels like once seen, it cannot be unseen, and you cannot put things back in the box. Some things to watch for with this transit could be like maybe some miscalculations or coming to light, you know, or discovering errors that force a change in your direction. Maybe surprise changes in business deals, plans, or agreements. Maybe unforeseen announcements or sudden pivots in a strategy that you didn't see coming, but now you have to adapt quickly. And also maybe an intuitive knowing about someone or something, or hidden motives or tactics that are being exposed. That's what I have for this transit here. And the next one is also one of my favorites, Mercury trine Neptune. It kind of feels like after that opposition, now with Mercury Uranus, now we have like a softer energy here. There's a harmonious moment with trine. It's kind of like drifting and flowing with the water energy. It kind of feels like during that previous opposition, something comes up and you're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. And then I was thinking that maybe there's that overwhelming feeling with this opposition, and you're thinking about like maybe having an astrology consultation, you know, maybe during this Mercury trine Neptune, you're like, oh, I want to talk to an astrologer. And then you meet the astrologer and things start to make sense, and you have that epiphany. You're like, oh, now things make sense, and you see that bigger picture. And because they're both in water signs, there is that deep sense of healing maybe that comes with this. Could be like a, you know, deep healing, heartfelt connection with a friend. You know, I was thinking of that part in Good Will Hunting that says, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. That emotional clarity that might come up. Maybe, you know, there may be subtle guidance, mentorship, and support, or that comes to you here during this time. Maybe you find, I don't know, something very random. Maybe you find a new therapist, and you had been like waiting, you had been looking for a good therapist that aligns with your values, and now, you know, you just find that person that gets you on that deeper level. Or maybe during this Mercury trine Neptune, you have been watching Adam's YouTube channel every day. You know, it has become part of your daily ritual, and you just see that Adam has a Kickstarter going on, and you're like, you know, I want to start studying with Adam. So you go and, you know, this is a very auspicious time. You can mark this on your calendar. It's a good day to contribute to Kickstarter and get your courses. And study with Nightlight. I think this is an auspicious time to start investing in your astrology learning. So this is what I have for this Mercury trine Neptune here. Again, what an auspicious day to follow your astrological journey on this.
Love it.
Yeah, and then Mars square Neptune. So Mars, as I said, wants to move forward with courage, drive, precision. And then when I think of Mars square Neptune, I think of maybe like Mars here wants to just move with a higher purpose. And in Pisces and Sagittarius, both ruled by exalted Jupiter in Cancer, I'm thinking of this transit maybe highlighting the desire to do something for a bigger purpose than yourself, maybe helping others, maybe volunteering, maybe contributing to a meaningful cause. And I was looking that it's interesting because Tony Robbins has this aspect, if he's in his chart, if I'm not mistaken, he has that charismatic presence at a motivational speaker. And when he talks, people listen to him. That's the opposite. That's the positive side of this energy. You know, people are drawn to him for his advocacy for something bigger than himself. But because this is a square, we can think of maybe the shadow side would be overdoing such efforts to help others, or maybe helping others but with the wrong intentions, especially hard aspects with Neptune. Maybe we have to check our intentions sometimes. Maybe that visionary energies can go into the self-sacrifice side. It's important that to think that, hey, I have to fill my own cup first and avoid overextending myself, and then I can take care of other people. And I was thinking of maybe risks of over idealism or excess, which is very typical Neptune things, or confusions may arise in matters of maybe authority, leadership, work, you know, hidden agendas, misjudgments, creating challenges, and also maybe some health, you know, related matters that are Marsy, like some things that might come up under stressful situations. But some things to watch for with this transit here is just be mindful of like overextending yourself in service. You know, maybe your friends want to move to a new apartment and you have a lot to do yourself and you can't say no to them. And then the day comes, you're like, oh shit, I have to help them now. And also like that confusion in maybe like organizational misunderstandings or legal matters might arrive. And also, again, checking our energy and motivation, and also being cautious of mismanaged projects, maybe taking on too many things and then just feeling burnt out. And this is all I have for this transits here.
Awesome. You know, there's something that came to my mind that I'll share as my little contribution to this section, when we dance between a Mars-Saturn square and a Mars-Neptune square, I think about a very common dynamic for me as someone who goes to the gym regularly. There's the part of me that has to muster up the discipline and effort to go when I don't want to go. That feels very Mars-Saturn to me. To just get myself out the door, to develop the willpower, the discipline to get there and do it. But then when I'm there, the secret to having a good training session is the process, I should say, of finding my limit, finding my edge, and pushing to failure. So pushing to failure doesn't mean pushing beyond failure and hurting yourself. It means finding the limit of your effort and ability, and then you fail. It's like, oh, I can lift this 8 times, but I cannot lift it 9, and then you stop. And so I think about how it's funny because really for me, the Saturn and the Mars are not really my gym experience as much as Saturn or Mars and Neptune are, where the hard part is getting there. And then the next hard part is actually it's like a paradox that your success in the gym depends upon mindful failure. Because you won't recover well, you won't grow, you won't be healthy if you try to push past failure, if you don't find that gentle space of surrender within the effort. Okay, I can go this far, and now I have to fail and give up. Isn't that funny so for me, but of course I'm born with Mars-Neptune contact in my chart, so maybe that describes my relationship to the process, more than it might someone else's. But it's interesting because if you put these two things together, it's like there might be some need for effort, consistency, discipline, doing hard things. And then there's also some gentle space of accepting failure, limits, and surrendering. And they come really close together at this time of the month. So it's interesting to me to think about it that way. Very good. Thank you, Shirazad. That was just so nice. I really love that. Yeah. And thanks for pumping the Kickstarter. I love that. Okay, so our next segment, Tim is going to take us through, and it's this mid-month segment that I'm going to highlight for you all now. It really is the sun. It's the sun, it's the sun, it's the sun. But here's how it happens. So I'm going to advance our chart here to let me move this. Oops. Here we go. So we're going to go back to the 16th. And the sequence begins when the sun gets into a square with Saturn. So here we are again. And then just a couple of days later, we're going to get a new moon in Sagittarius. That new moon in Sagittarius is on the 19th. And then the very next day on the 20th, we're going to see the sun then go through the square to Neptune. So it's that same dance between Saturn and Neptune. The sun is making with a new moon in Sagittarius smack dab in the middle. So Tim is going to break this down for us right now. I'm really eager to hear what you have to say about this, because I think this is it's a pretty magical new moon, considering how hopeful and kind of big a Jupiter Sagittarius new moon can be. But then it's like right between Saturn and Neptune, so it has this depth that you might not think about right away. Anyway, what do you think? What are you thinking about this one, Tim?
No, Adam, you're like square on. That's exactly kind of where I got to go. But I want to go really quickly to Shahrazad. That Mars Neptune square, thank you for that. As a natal Mars and Sag, like, you described me pretty well. So thank you for giving me that heads up. Back to the sun square Saturn on December 16th. Yeah. So Adam, to your point, like the sun, I like to use imagery mostly. This is why I love using the tarot. So like the sun is consciousness, identity, ego, confidence. And like when we look at the sun card, I don't know if you can see this. It's like naked baby, happy, running. The sun is being consciousness. It gives. It constantly gives life. It's not a receiving principle. It wants to give. It identifies itself, its ego, and its purpose. Now, squaring Saturn, Saturn is structure, discipline, limitation. It's represented by the death card, which you can literally see here. You can see death marching. You've got like the Pope over here. You've got like a dead king. And so when you kind of put those together, what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a test of kind of worthiness and reality checks, right? Like the boundary between like this youthful son, right? Like just riding, living his life, shining, doing his thing, and the real limitations of death, of, hey, like, was everything that I was doing, how does that impact? What is the larger thing at play here? And so it's quite interesting that the archetypes that I really came up with were like the golden hero. He's been off at battle. He's living through this purpose, right? Like the sun in Sagittarius is really charged with pursuing confidence and like, you know, purpose with a fire. And they have convictions, particularly about like his faith. And then he comes back and he's dealt with the hard truths of the reality, right? Like we went off to war. It was glorious. Battle was fantastic. I come back and deal with the reality of people are dead. Death is here. Now I have people that have turned against me. I have to deal with the real life limitations and the mastery of what becomes what's next of me now becoming a king. There's responsibility. It's not just about me shining my light or just giving and being the center of things. There are real checks and balances that have to be held up. And so with Saturn in Pisces, that really is at the end of the zodiac, and those kind of structures are really being held up by like nostalgia, some like emotional conviction, with Jupiter being in Cancer, exalted. There's like this memory from the gut or belly of security that kind of happens when Saturn's there. And as he's in Pisces and things are kind of breaking down, so to speak, the sun is shining a light on those. And so that's going to require the sun to maybe think differently about the way in which its ego or its confidence is expressed. And Saturn's going to shine the limits on what can and can't be done. So some of the themes to tie this together, some of the things you're going to probably see that come up are like accountability for some of the maybe thoughts and beliefs that you had. You're going to be faced with some hard truths, or maybe faced with some emotional truths that maybe challenge what you fervently believe, or what the sun, how you fervently identify yourself. It could be delays or obstacles or particular pressures that are much deeper than the Sagittarian idealism of I want to do this and go get it, versus, hey, let's see how this is all going to play out in the system. Does this actually add or stress the system? So some ways we may see this actually manifest in our plane is like just straight up confrontations with limits. Like, I thought I did everything right. And then you're like, hey, well, when you did X, Y, and Z, sure, that worked for you, but we were all left over here without anything. Was that a consideration of things that you did? I know you did that on your belief and ideal, but now you have disrupted a structure, or you've disrupted an emotional maybe stability that may have been falling apart, but now it's completely falling apart. So there's going to be some feelings of judgment, maybe slow evaluation, feeling blocked by like authority. That's that Saturn in Pisces, with like responsibilities, could be responsibilities to others or the emotional security of others at this time. And you may just feel a little bit heavy. And really what's really transpiring is like the sun has these convictions, and he's really just, again, being challenged by Saturn structures of longevity. Because as I mentioned, we're at the last few degrees of Pisces. And so Saturn really wants to challenge what's going to be taken into the new cycle in Aries. What's actually going to then, what survives is then what we can actually put emotion, energy, and all of that stuff into a new cycle. So it's asking you your ideals and the way that you may review yourself to kind of take a look at those and leave what doesn't serve you. So I would say some of the best ways to handle this transit, or to use this transit, is try to handle responsibilities head on. Don't try to defer them. Reviewing contracts and structures and plans, like putting a real spotlight on them, really trying to identify the gaps or holes. Think about how this provides security, not only for you, but maybe for others. But also, because Saturn is in Pisces, kind of breaking down some boundaries, it may be appropriate for you to set really clear boundaries about what does work for you and what doesn't. And then I think another one that's really pertinent for me is accepting like these temporary delays, like as progress. Just because the sun, we want to give and shine and show everything and move. Sometimes you really need to stop and take stock and have Saturn slow down, bind what's there to understand what you have. And you can see that as actually productive. During this time, I would not take criticism personally. I wouldn't make any really emotional or over fervent decisions. Again, Jupiter is in Cancer, so everything is like bigger and larger than life, even though he's retrograde. That can be internally, you've got an idea and you're running with it. I would just kind of stop and think and allow yourself to process. And definitely don't try to push something with resistance. Usually Saturn is forcing us to stop to take a look at something, again, in Pisces, that we're probably not seeing, or something that we're trying to shine a light on that it's probably going over our head. So I think that's the best time for that. So the sun is a little bit under pressure. He wants to show his thing. He wants to keep going. Saturn's binding him a bit. But then on December 19th, we have a new moon in Sagittarius, which I absolutely love to see. Also because a Venus is conjunct the moon as well. I don't like that Jupiter is technically in aversion, so he can't really see, but he's still in Cancer doing his big thing. So what happens after how the story goes in my mind is the sun has just had like all these limitations. And so now the moon kind of comes up. So like the ego is now conjoined with the soul, or like the moon, and those emotions kind of align to like commit to a new direction, right? Like that is what the new moon is all about. It's about planting new seeds. So after you've been stopped, you're forced to kind of take a look inside, look a little bit about what's going on. Now you've got your soul kind of realigning in that fiery Jupiterian direction. It's planting a new seed, and it's got some heavy ideas of growth and expansion. Now, the interesting thing about this, though, is that with Jupiter being retrograde, I don't know if it should be really externalized. I feel that with Jupiter being retrograde, this is more of an internal. So instead of like the archer taking aim and like going to get it, it's more of like the oracle sitting back and letting like intuition and letting the feeling of what's going on guide or create the vision that they want to pursue when Jupiter goes direct. I really think that future trajectory has to be the word when I was writing my notes I kept thinking about was gestation. Like this is like a new idea forming and just like gestating it and creating that emotional foundation where the self and the soul kind of align and are like recommitting. And so as I play that out, that's super like, oh, and by the way, the card for Sagittarius is the Temperance card. And that plays exactly with this, this oracle theme of temperance is you have to have balance within doing things, not taking it like the archer and just shooting and going far and running and spreading like wildfire. There's a balance to things. And when you can get balance, there's like a magic that kind of happens. I think about that as Jupiter and his expansion. And I think about why him and Mercury have such issues. Jupiter isn't like you have to know every particular detail. There's a cohesion, there's harmony in these balances. And so I think that it's really that card exemplifies what we're asked to do at this time in this new moon is to be excited about it, rekindle that faith, but it's on an internal level and for you to really connect with your emotional truth. So how I believe we should use this transit is first deeply reflecting before initiating anything, making sure, as I said, that that's aligned with your emotional truth and who you are. Reconnect also with ancestral roots or using things in your childhood and or like influences that may have felt comforting to you at this time, relying on kind of that memory to massage some of the ideas about who you are now and who you would like to be, or what you would like to take into the future as Jupiter expands. And I really do think that this is about setting intentions that come from like your heart and where you can use that to externally, again, expand when Jupiter goes direct, but having such a clarity, because after this, we're gonna have some not so clear moments. What I wouldn't do during this time is really force external expansion. Again, this is internal, I believe, really taking a look at what you need to do and what you would like to do. And I would not suggest jumping into something because it feels big, or having a really great idea and just wanting to run with it right now. Really process it, because this is a time where it can get easy to over idealize people or kind of opportunities and just overblow them and take it out. I think this is a really, really good, just take it in, create that vision, hold on to that vision, and emotionally connect to it. And then the reason being is because shortly after that, on December 20th, we've got the Sun square Neptune, which is interesting because we just had, we've just developed this new kind of direction. We're starting this new seed of starting to figure out what we want to be excited about and where we're going to go. And now we square Neptune. Again, Sun, happy naked baby. Neptune is represented by the Hanged Man. This guy is hanging from a cross. He's upside down and his head is enlightened. And this is to give him a different perspective, right? The Hanged Man is to see things not upright. You know, when you get a different perspective, or when you take the time to hang by one leg and you stop and you reverse the flow of blood, you can see things that maybe you didn't see before, or you make into considerations different things that maybe had not been open to you because you were constantly seeing things in one way or another. So this is why Neptune is fogs, dreams, illusions, but it's also imagination, which can be directed and be productive. So the archetype that I kind of came up between these two is kind of the daydreamer, which is the hangman, and then the center of attention, the sun, right? So the sun is constantly trying to assert himself, figure out what he's going on. And then you have Neptune, who's forcing you to kind of pause, or you can't see everything. I can assert all that I want into this abyss of emotion, but if I'm not even sure if anyone is getting anything, is anything growing, is anything happen, am I actually being effective at anything? These are kind of sometimes the questions that come up. And I love how Adam described working out with his Mars Neptune square, because it's like, I have to push to like, not this, it sounds weird, spiritual, but like there's this really intelligent feeling of like, okay, that's enough. And I have to stop. I think the sun is in the same place, right? With this Neptune fog. How much do I just keep giving more and more and more ego? But like, I don't see everything. That doesn't make sense. Am I being effective or am I not? This intelligent and emotional way of finding where this is enough. This is who I am. This is what I'm shining. This is what I'm actually projecting. So some of the things that may come up in this square are like identity confusion. Again, am I showing this, or with the sun and Sag, are these beliefs really that I'm kind of confused about this, or idealizing something and projecting that? Also completely dissolving your opinions or ideas within merging other opinions and ideas, because you're not really clear if what you're doing is actually working effective. I believe that how to use this transit, because of the fogginess and imagination and creativity, I say do creative visioning. Like, this is the time where if there was a point in your life where you wanted to be, I use this example, I'm gonna use it again. You wanted to be a backup dancer for Britney Spears when you were 7. This is the time to let your brain go there and just do it. Listen to your intuition without acting. This is not the time to make commitments about, this is what I'm starting, this is what I want to do. Taking things at face value, signing paperwork, long contract. This is the time to really allow your self-identity to maybe explore a little bit within bounds, but it's not really time to force it into, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going. Yes, there may be some mistakes and things you don't see, but allowing yourself to experience that creativity can definitely open you up to a completely different world that you had not considered. And also being very open to letting your dreams guide you symbolically. I keep a dream journal, and I do find during Neptune transits, like there are interesting things that appear in my dreams that are quite helpful, or that have a deeper meaning usually later on. So I like this one. Like this one, especially if you're a daydreamer, but just allow yourself and journal during this time. I would encourage journaling just to see what comes up and how that can be effective. So that's what I've got.
Awesome. Yeah, one thing that comes to my mind is, again, we have an aversion between a new moon and its host. And so thinking a little bit about, like, what is it about Sagittarius that just doesn't see Cancer? And what is it about Cancer that doesn't see Sagittarius? There's some, I think, psychological cliches we could lean into, emotions and fire, or like all of that. But one thing that they're when it comes to our spiritual journey that they have very different views on is that Cancer is really about the depth at which we connect to the life we're living right now. So, when you think about, for me, what comes to mind, for example, is the Cancer sun. Jupiter's been sitting on my sun for a while now, really close to the station point. And it's been all about dad stuff, like how to be a better dad, how to connect with my girls, how to be more present as a husband, how to, a lot of it has been about the life I'm in right now, embodied, and how does spirituality play out in the imminent domain of my home, my family. Sagittarius, by contrast, is almost always about a bigger horizon that's more expansive beyond the immediate. And so Sagittarius asked me to consider the direction of my life, the direction of my education, the direction of maybe Sagittarius will be the part of my psyche that says there's something more than just this life, so you better keep a transcendental perspective, a broader horizon of consideration. Well, you can see how the two need each other, but can be each other's blind spot. If you're, how many Sagittarian clients with one planet or another in Sagittarius getting a transit, something, will have a hard time settling down, committing, finding home, finding peace, because they're restless. That can be like a psychological disturbance that Sag deals with, so to speak. But how many times do Cancerians get comfortable in the known, or emotional bonds or attachments that become regressive, and so they need to move beyond the home in the same way that a child needs to take flight out of the nest. So these two signs, the fact that they're coming up as Jupiter's the ruler of this new moon. The new moon has a kind of check from a very watery space in Pisces. So how does the big horizon or vision or long-term plan or goal, the kind of long-reaching bullseye that the archer's trying to hit, how does it also come in to the embodied imminent domain that we're currently in? It's a bit like getting the archer to focus on how can you expand your view of something very present, like your daily health or the home environment, or something just much more imminent. So I wonder how frustrating that could be as well, because the big, huge, open expansiveness of Sag doesn't necessarily like being limited or confined to more immediate spaces. So I'm wondering about that tension, which I think you brought up in a number of ways as you were talking, Tim, but I felt like I could really feel that one as a Cancer myself, who's some of my most, before I got married, for whatever reason, in my 20s, I dated a ton of Sagittarians. It's like, and it was such a Cancer-Sag dialogue. So it's very educational.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up really quickly a great point. I've got Mars in Sag, like the restlessness of constantly doing stuff, and Jupiter in Cancer. And so that dynamic definitely plays out of like the security and wanting, but like there's such a horizon. I gotta go, but needing. So anyway, but yeah, thank you for that. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. And finally, our reindeer-eared Bianca. So festive. So put us all in the holiday spirit. I'm going to walk us through her Venus segment here, which is really interesting. I'll move my head up here. Let's see. Okay.
I figured while I'm talking about the Christmas season, talking of that section of end of the month, I'm like, May as well wear my
Yeah,
rainbow squares.
that's right. That's right.
Sprinkle
Well,
some Christmas spirit.
yes, no, we need it. Venus will square Saturn, which means that we'll all be having a very merry time.
Mm.
um, and then a couple of days later, Venus squares Neptune because the two are so close together. So we've got another planet rolling through these squares. So first Venus square Saturn, then Venus square Neptune. That's Christmas. The Venus Neptune dynamic is Christmas Eve. If you're celebrating that, to me, I feel like that could make for a very magical signature. Don't drink too much eggnog kind of signature, maybe as well. But anyway, and then on the 30th, the kind of last major transit of the month that Bianca's going to cover for us is Mercury coming through the square. And that square will be to Saturn in Pisces. So again, the theme of so many squares between Pisces and Sag repeats during this section, but some really dynamic moments from Venus around the holiday. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Bianca. I'll highlight for you as you go.
Thanks. So yeah, we've got Venus in Sag. She brings, I imagine, a return of hope and movement and like more meaning in relationships. She wants growth and inspiration and the kind of connection that lifts the spirit. Saturn in Pisces, meanwhile, is trying to, I would imagine, hold boundaries in a sign where everything diffuses. And it's the tension between carrying heavy emotional responsibility, but wanting something more softer and warm or even something to come in and lighten the load. And I really liked Shahrazad when you mentioned in the Mars square Saturn piece around mental fortitude. I feel like that's very resonant, and I feel like that Saturn is really trying to hold down the fort at this time. And then I see Venus coming in and shaping Saturn rather than being restricted by him, and she softens Saturn's austerity and redirects his discipline towards maybe something more meaningful. I would imagine like an example of this is like that duty-bound caregiver, the person who's been trying to do everything herself, weighed down by responsibility, operating from obligation and emotional fatigue. And Saturn here is rigid by necessity. And then something Venusian enters, a moment of warmth, a connection, a spark of inspiration. And it doesn't erase the responsibility, but it reorganizes Saturn's priorities, and the structure that Saturn maintains becomes a container for renewed connection. And so this square is asking us, where is my sense of duty overshadowing my capacity to receive? And where could allowing in a bit of warmth or meaning support the structures I'm trying to hold? So here Venus leads. She gives Saturn a reason to endure, and Saturn gives Venus the form to make her desires last. And this becomes an encounter where responsibility is infused with heart, and desire becomes more intentional and steady and real. And then moving on to the 24th of December, Venus square Neptune. So I see both planets sitting at the anaretic degree, the 29th degree. I'm thinking of this as the last chapter of a book. Everything becomes intensified and heightened because it's Venus and Neptune. We get a transit that feels like an emotional crescendo, and it's perfecting on Christmas Eve. It's a time of year already steeped in myth and memory and longing. And so this is a time that can feel incredibly romantic and outerworldly, but it can also magnify the inner longing for what's missing in your life, the fantasy of the perfect partner, the perfect family. And so when reality doesn't match the dream, Neptune amplifies that sense of melancholy and isolation. For some, this transit heightens creative inspiration and spiritual connection. But for others, especially around the holiday season, it can intensify loneliness and nostalgia. And I wanted to go in a little bit deeper on this idea of sacred longing. Longing is not a sign that something is missing. It's a sign that something inside you is alive and awakened, and it reveals what matters, what moves us, what we value. So with Venus and Neptune, longing becomes like a spiritual compass. It pulls you towards imagination and intimacy and meaning. And as Tim mentioned in the Sun square Neptune, about essentially letting dreams be our guide, and questioning, like, what am I idealizing, and does it match up with who I want to truly be or what I truly want? So the invitation is not to extinguish the longing, it's to treat the longing as something that doesn't need to be solved or escaped, but to be listened to. Because longing is where your heart is in conversation with the divine, and that conversation is the real magic of Venus square Neptune. And then lastly, on the 30th of December, Mercury square Saturn. So I had a bit of difficulty with this one, which kind of seems on the nose for the transit in itself. But how I tied this in was Venus Neptune square might reveals or intensifies the desire for connection or intimacy, but with that longing on its own, it's imaginal, right? It's unbound, it needs form, and that's exactly where Mercury in square Saturn steps in. So Mercury is like that sacred questioner, the mind that's willing to separate things in order to understand them. And Saturn supports this by insisting that we take the conversation seriously. So Mercury, Saturn says, if this longing matters, let's examine it and make it real. So the square invites us into meaningful friction, and it creates a moment where our yearning begins to take shape through reflection and discernment, and we move from the dream state of Neptune into the clarity building work of Mercury and Saturn. And Mercury separates, Saturn deepens. So together they create a moment where sacred questioning becomes a pathway to wisdom. And it's as if the Venus Neptune longing reveals like our heart's desire, and Mercury Saturn teaches us how to interpret it and integrate it. And what was once a longing now becomes a truth that we can name. So that's all I have for the end of the month. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you. That was wonderful.
You're right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we have these sequences of squares to Saturn and Neptune, which to me all could be talked about similarly in terms of providing reality check and visionary expansiveness at the same time. So when I think a lot about a creative process as a writer that is very familiar to me, which is here's an idea. Maybe the idea is a scene that will start the next chapter of a book. And when I sit down and start writing it, there's this no. It just comes up. I'm like, oh, this isn't the right thing. I can't explain it. It's just this isn't it. And what I have learned over time, when I was really young in my 20s and I went through 2 graduate programs in creative writing. And so it was 4 years worth of sitting in creative writing workshops and doing a lot of creative writing projects, including what ended up becoming my first book. And not that I'm any master of writing, but I think that if you spend enough time in any kind of creative skill or discipline, you'll know what I'm talking about. In that early in that process, when I would hit that no, I get really discouraged, and I would think, oh, that means I'm not very creative, or my ideas aren't really good, or I get enthusiastic about something, and then when that no comes up, or this isn't working or feeling right, I would start judging myself to be a poor writer. And again, not that I'm some Pulitzer Prize winning writer at all, but as I went along, if I stayed patient and curious when the no came, often it, rather than spinning out and reacting, a new thought or idea would come in its place. And it was usually, there was like, the no of the first idea was closely connected to the next idea. So let me give you a simple example. In my new book that I'm just finishing right now, there was a chapter that began with a scene that now comes at the end of the chapter. And at first, you know, in my early 20s, if I had started writing and got the no, I'd have been like, what? But then after sitting with it for a while, I realized, oh, it's just out of sequence for how it's going to fit best. And it actually goes at the end, not at the beginning. And this other thing's going to go at the beginning. And now there's this sequence that makes sense. I feel like Saturn and Neptune is very much like that, where you can hit what feels like a no. And all of these transits are going through this sequence this month. You can hit what feels like a no or a limit or a block. But if you stay patient, there's something like the muse is seeping through, like Neptune, that no, to give you a clear sense of what comes next. And it will often play very closely off from the no, and can be very enlightening if you pay attention. So I think most creative people know what I'm talking about, where just because something's not working doesn't mean that there isn't a really interesting reason it's not working that may be creatively connected to the next step. So I would comment on that with Venus, especially at the end of the month, Bianca, because I feel like Venus in particular, when it comes to harmonization with Saturn, requires patience. It requires not taking no as never. So, well, this has been really nice. Let me tell you guys, if you're listening to this, how you can connect with these wonderful creative people that I'm so thankful to collaborate with each month. By the way, if you're like, hey, should I study at Nightlight? These are the kind of people you get to hang out with. This is just like a sample of some of our students who, you know, really got engaged at Nightlight while they were here. Okay, so let's go through Courtney. You can find Courtney's work on Instagram, Dream the Wilderness. You can find her work also at dreamthewilderness.substack.com. And I highly recommend checking out the work that she's doing creatively with astrology, and really nice, like really beautiful reflections on the symbols. So check that out. Is there anything else I'm forgetting to mention, Courtney?
Nope, that's all good. I did recently start a series exploring the ecological functions of the signs each month. And so if you like the rewilding mixed with astrology combination, I definitely recommend checking that out.
If you have no idea what she's talking about, trust me when I say you'll like it.
Thank you.
Because I know some people will go, what's rewilding? Just go check it out. You're gonna love it. Let's go to Shirazad. Instagram is at New Moon Inner Healing. You have been just pumping out really good content. I've been so impressed. It's been so much fun to watch.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
You can find her at newmooninnerhealing.com. And then YouTube, got a new YouTube. So I just feel like, look at these people flying in taking flight.
You gave us wings, Adam.
I love it. The Nightlight, whatever Nightlight is, it's responsible. But I'm so happy. So that's Shirazad. And then let me go to Instagram at Cosmic Blueprint. Is that? There we go. That's Tim. Okay, I'm just making sure I got you, Tim. You can follow Tim there. But then you're also on Blue Sky.
Linktree, yes. I'm on Blue Sky, most active. Yep, but you can find all my stuff on my Linktree. You can schedule bookings, And then, yeah, I'm working on YouTube, but it's very early. But
Yeah,
find me there.
we're gonna, as soon as that's ready, we will be pumping you up.
Mhm.
And then last but not least,
Yay!
where are you, Bianca? Sorry, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to find your handle. Sorry, here we go.
Yeah.
At Bianca Celine
Celine
Astrology
Astrology.
on Instagram. And
Yep.
then same thing,
Yep. Same thing.
biancaceline.com.
Yep. And yeah, and I also wanted to say just with the Kickstarter, taking advantage of that, and I highly recommend, if you're thinking about studying with Adam, like, please do. So much, you can find so many opportunities in there to connect with other like-minded people, like I've done. I've collaborated with a couple other Nightlight students and alumni. We've come together to create a YouTube channel where we get together. We all have a common faith background in the Mormon faith, and we all we come together. We just talk about how astrology has kind of deepened our relationship with faith. And so, yeah, on this channel, we talk about how our spiritual belief and personal experience and astrology has shaped our lives. So if you're curious to know more, come check us out. It's with Ryan Hunt and Mindy DeGraffenreid. So, yeah.
And the other Nightlight, fantastic people. Ryan's been a part of our reading clinic in the past too. And then you can find them at faithmeetsfate.com if you want the Substack. Is that right?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. And then YouTube is just Faith Meets Fate. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you will connect with these wonderful astrologers, and also connect with everything that we're doing at nightlightastrology.com. The main thing I want to remind you of is that we are trying to get to 2043 backers for our Kickstarter by New Year's Eve. We're off to a good start, but we need your help. After we sign off, there's a video telling you about all of the unique rewards that you can get when you donate to support the channel. 7 days a week, we're trying to build the success of other astrologers on the channel. As you all know, we try to make astrology accessible and affordable. This is free content 7 days a week, year round now. So if this plays a pivotal, important role, even semi-regularly, some people I know watch every day, some people a couple times a week or a couple times a month, whatever the case might be. If you like it, back it. We would really appreciate your support. So thank you for listening, and we will see you all again next time. Bye, everyone. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you about the different rewards that are available when you donate and support this year's Kickstarter. Remember, our goal is to get to 2043 backers by New Year's Eve, and your contribution makes a huge difference. But when you do contribute, there are a variety of really cool gifts that we offer only once a year through the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm going to take you over to the Kickstarter and tell you about what those are. You can also find more information about almost all of the rewards on our website, nightlightastrology.com. Any of the programs that you might want to take, all of the details about those programs, their start dates are all located on the website in case that's a question. But at the top, you'll notice on the right-hand side, when you're scrolling down on the Kickstarter, you're going to see the different rewards that are available at different pledge levels. The basic pledge level is the Astrology of 2026 calendar. This is a really nice PDF calendar that we make that gives you a feel for what transits I'm going to be covering on the channel as the year goes on. It's also really nice to know what the transits of the year are day by day. So if that appeals to you, it's the most basic level of pledge, and you can get that. Scrolling down, you can also bundle any of these. So if you want multiple rewards, you can bundle them upon checkout. You'll see how that works when you're in there pledging. Scroll down a little bit. There's a new talk that I've made. This is a brief talk on the value of silence and having a silent or meditative practice in your life, how you might get one started. And again, just what I see as the value of that for astrologers. Scroll down a little bit more, you'll see the Astrology of 2026 audio and video. This is an exclusive lecture where I break down all of the major transits and astrological signatures for the year ahead. I'm not releasing this anywhere else, so if you want my insights for the entirety of 2026, this is a great reward to pick up. Scroll down a little bit more and you'll see that I have a guided meditation that I've created for your year ahead. This is more about spiritually, psychologically, emotionally focusing yourself for the year ahead. It's a special kind of guided meditation and visualization that I've created. So if that sounds appealing, you could pick that up. It's called The Oracle Within, a guided meditation. Scroll down a little bit more and you'll see that my new book, which I plan on starting at the latest by the summer of 2026, you can get in on that chapter by chapter first draft release in audio and text form, just like The Oracle Speaks, my first book that I just finished. This is a new book that I'm starting in 2026. So if you wanted to hop in on the early release for that, you could do that there. Scroll down a little bit more and the description of that book and what it's all about is right there for you to check out. Year ahead horoscope readings. If you want to receive about 6 hours worth of content going through horoscopes for 2026 for all 12 rising signs, this is a great offering that's going to give you, again, about 6 hours worth of horoscopes for all 12 signs for the year ahead. I'm not releasing anywhere else, so check that out. Then you'll notice as you scroll down a variety of different archived masterclasses from previous years. There's one on the lunar nodes in ancient astrology. That's about 10 hours worth of content. The Magic and Mystery of the Fixed Stars, again, about 10 hours of content. Zen and the Art of Zodiacal Releasing, and The Alchemy of the Outer Planets. These are all lengthy masterclasses that I taught in previous years, about 10 hours of content per package. So a really great deal on some advanced content there. If you are brand spanking new to astrology, check out Astrology for Complete Beginners. This is a course that we have. It's about 10 to 12 hours worth of content that's meant for people who are brand new to astrology. This is like astrology level 0. So, but if that's you or someone you know who might benefit from just like a basic introduction to astrology, check out that audio video course. You get a website where it takes you through everything. You can watch it at your own pace and time. It's all recorded. The next offering is Ask 3 Horary Questions. You purchase this one and you get the ability to write to me anytime throughout 2026, 3 separate occasions to ask 3 separate horary questions, and I respond to those via email. That's a really great service that saves you significantly off the course of horaries because you're bundling 3 together. So a really nice gift to use for yourself. Ask a couple of questions to me through horary form throughout the year. Scroll down and you'll see that I have only 30 of these. These are year ahead mini readings, very exclusive because I don't give readings anymore. I have students and staff taking clients through a special reading service. So my readings are very limited to classroom spaces, but I have 30 of these exclusive mini readings where I give you my take on your biggest transit for the year ahead in your birth chart. Those are personally recorded and sent to you. Then you'll see the 2025 Masterclass bundle, the 2024, and the 2023. These are, like upwards of 30 hours of content that are going to give you really deep exploration of a variety of topics. So those masterclass bundles are taking multiple series from previous years and bundling them together in one package. And you can see all the topics listed there through the 2025 bundle, the 2024 bundle, or the 2023 bundle. A really great way to package together a lot of intermediate to advanced level content that I've taught in the past. Then if you go down, the new 2026 masterclass series that I'm teaching is on the decans. So if you're interested in learning more about the decans and the upcoming 2026 masterclass, check this out. It's on sale right now through the Kickstarter. Won't be this cheap again. So a really good way to save on joining that program in 2026. If you have any questions about that program, you can find more information on the website through the page that's dedicated to the masterclass. Scroll down and you'll see we also have a new Nightlight Guild membership. This is ideal for people who are already enrolled in Nightlight or in the kind of Nightlight pipeline as students and are looking for more practice, more study at an intermediate to advanced level. We're meeting twice a month and doing live client readings, live horary workshops, a lot of practice with advanced concepts and techniques. So this is ideal for people who are really looking to continue developing within the Nightlight sphere. And so students in Nightlight, check this out, come study with us. This also includes every monthly webinar that I teach on the year, plus twice monthly meetings that are 2 hours each for advanced practice. So really nice to have a guild membership. This is something I've been wanting to develop for a while. Check that out. Scroll down, you'll see both of my wife's herbal apprenticeships, year 1 and year 2. If you like Ashley and her work, her YouTube channel, we own the same LLC. So we just thought we'd throw in her herbal apprenticeships at a discounted rate if you want to join those. And then really our most popular item are the class passes. So you'll see at the very bottom, you can attend 1 Nightlight course, 2 in a bundle, 3 in a bundle, or 4 in a bundle. And what that allows you to do at a really significantly discounted rate. This is our best sale of the year. We only do it through the Kickstarter. In those class passes, you can bundle and take year 1, year 2, year 3 in Hellenistic natal astrology. You can take the horary class, or you can take any yearly master class. And those class passes are going to allow you to then bundle together our programs and go through as many as you want. You could bundle 2 of them together, 3 or 4, or just 1. And it's going to be the best sale that we have on our courses for the year. So those are the different rewards we offer. If you have any questions about any of them, feel free to email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We deeply appreciate your support, and I hope that in exchange for donating and supporting this free content year-round, that you will also find a valuable reward in one of these offerings. Remember that your donation supports a staff of people, myself, my family, the free production of all of this content year-round. We deeply, deeply appreciate your contribution. All right. Hope you're having a great day. See you later. Bye.